Hey everyone, welcome back to Bachelor Happy Hour. I'm Joe.
And I'm Serena.
And we are here today with our lovely guest. She's been on this podcast before, but last time we talked to her was episode 2. Zoe, welcome back to Bachelor Happy Hour.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Of course. Okay, Zoe, so we got a lot to talk about. You've been officially casted on Paradise, hometowns, fantasy suites, the finale. I know you have a lot to say. Where would you like to kick this podcast off?
I don't know.
One of those topics.
Oh, okay. We're starting at those topics. I mean, there was stuff even before that.
Yeah,
I think.
Let's go to the beginning. You want to just go all the way through?
I want to go all the way through. I think some other people have been on podcasts, like maybe like rewriting history. I think we saw, obviously, I got a tough start into the house and to this whole journey, I guess you could say. And I think since they were allowed to talk about me at the tell-all, I want to clear up some things. Is that when I took him to the rooftop, it was after like 5-6 hours of playing basketball. We all had a chance to play with the kids. We all had a chance to play with Grant and stuff. And then we were playing the game. Things did escalate, and I was one of the few people that was like, hey girls, like let's just like back off a little bit and slow down. When Beverly wasn't feeling well, I told her I'd go sit with Grant. Like, you know, I was always trying to be aware of other people's feelings, and I feel like you know, most of the girls, they stood up for me, and they will obviously tell you that now. But I think, and even the audience, you know, I've had people DM me apologies and stuff. But yeah, I think it was just a high stakes environment. A lot of things were said to me and at me. And I think that I actually handled myself a lot better. And yeah, and then I had to basically exist in that space going forward. So I don't think it was kind. And I think people saying that I'm misunderstood or that I had to like fight my way back to be friendly in the house, that's not the case. Like, you don't, it's not being misunderstood. It's that people judged me and they were incorrect. And a lot of the girls apologize. I also want that to be known. It's like, I'm great with everyone now, like Ellie, Joe, Seraphine, I love them all. But yeah, I think it was just a tough start. And I think the audience didn't really get to see the whole picture. And like, you know, and then going into episode 2, it seemed like I was just like crying because like, oh my God, I didn't get extra time with Grant. And that absolutely was not the case. I'm such a type A person. I think people forget, like, I'm an engineer. I was working on Wall Street, so I'm used to like getting the right answers. And all the girls were so excited to see Hannah Berner, but I was so excited to see Daniel from Shark Tank. Like, I was like, oh my God, Daniel from Shark Tank. Like, I'm, you know, trying to win him over and I'm not getting any rewards. And like, it was such a large group date. And by that time, Grant had already formed connections with some people. So it was kind of like, oh, like I'm drowning in like all aspects of this date. And there were lots of comments made to me throughout, again, between the first date and the second date. And I didn't do anything to anyone outside of what Grant saw. And he said he liked that I had taken him to the rooftop the day that it happened. And so it was just kind of like I was drowning. Like, that's why I was upset. And I also think that like a lot of the girls had the same, they were, you know, on the same page. And I always want to be the person, like, we don't all have to think the same. So like me being like, no, I didn't have fun today. Like, it was just so stressful. It was to open a dialogue for like anyone else that was also feeling the same way. It wasn't like, oh my God, like, look at me, like I need the attention. And so I think, as we said, the girls got to know me and they were like, yeah, I think we just maybe thought one thing. And so I think after that day, and again, even that night, when I told Grant, I was not sitting there listing off names and listing off grievances. It genuinely was like, I am fighting for my life in this house. And I want that to be known of like why my energy has shifted on this date. And for him to then come in and kind of drop the bomb and not actually like support me in that situation was a bit off guard. So like, that's kind of why I just like pulled away and like kept to myself. But yeah, I wanted that like to be clear up. And as I said, all the girls after that night, a lot of them either came up and apologized and or like we hashed it out and we're good.
Did you watch the Women Tell All?
I did. Yeah.
Okay, so that's one thing I'm not a huge fan of, when someone's not there.
I know, we were hoping, we would have loved to see them bring you just for a segment at least, because it's hard for the girls because they obviously are going to have to speak on what happened, but then you can't have this like full dialogue that
Yeah.
you. And we did see Serafina kind of try to jump to your defense at points, but it's not the same, obviously, as like words coming directly out of your mouth.
I think words coming out of my mouth, but also like to see that I don't have any issues with anyone on that stage. And I think that's
not what it felt like watching it.
It's not. Well, first off, Ally Jo, she's allowed to speak her piece. She was the one involved in this, you know, and I'm glad that she got to stand up for herself. I don't mind that. Another girl that did need to give her 2 cents and what she was saying wasn't true. I don't appreciate that. But I know, and I think too, a lot of people don't want to put the target on their back. So maybe people who did agree with me or understood me like aren't going to speak up because they don't want to get involved in the drama. But I think that is like when people see like, oh, like I'm friends with everyone or the majority of people, like it's not like it's not the narrative of I was not in there to like not make a single friend. I'm a very reserved person. I have been through very tough things and I've dealt with very, you know, different situations where it's just not been good to just be open and vulnerable. And I think going into a place like this, when we are literally all competing for the same prize, to me, it's not my natural instinct to be like, I'm going to go in here and be best friends with all of you and be fake, because that's just not me. And there were some things that were being said at the very first night. I was like, I don't really like, I don't vibe with. So I kept to myself, and but at the same time in a respectful way, or like in ways that I thought was being respectful. And as I said, at the end of the day, when I got to know people genuinely, then I'm genuine friends with them and I do love them and I want to support them. And I'm so glad that we all were in this process together. But that's the way I operate. If someone else operates differently, that's not wrong. But if my biggest flaw is being reserved and, you know, keeping to myself, I'll take that. So.
What do you feel like the shift was from your relationship with the girls in episode 1 and 2 to kind of 3, 4, 5? It feels like after episode 2, things did start to look up and your relationships did start to form.
Well, as I said from the jump, I expected people to be like, oh, she's stealing him. She must like want the attention. She like must want all this time with him. And as I said, when you were there and you understood we had been playing for 5 hours, it's not like we just stepped foot in the basketball court. Grant, can I take you? That's disrespectful. It's not like I had the one-on-one and then I'm taking him. That's disrespectful. If I had kept doing it on other group dates, which like the next finance date, I could have sat beside him. I could have stolen him, but I didn't. And so I think when people assume that that's the way that you operate and they're realizing that's not, as I said, it was just to make my mark, let him know that I'm here for him. And after that, everyone do their own thing. Like, and I think once people realize like, oh no, she is just like, that was it. That was the one thing that she wanted to do. And like, you know, and at the same time, all these girls saying, I wouldn't do it. Guess what? I made the top 3. So maybe that is what made my journey different than yours. And I'm grateful for that.
Speaking of making the top 3, I think a big story surrounding your story was the fact that you didn't get a one-on-one date. And I think a lot of people were like, I'm not giving you enough credit for being there.
Yeah.
Just almost like you were by default, like it was you. Can you kind of talk about that situation and your relationship with Grant and stuff that we probably didn't see?
Yeah. I mean, I think well, first off, I've seen a lot of like disrespect as far as that goes. I think people forget that there's only one wife, fiance at the end of this. And you're keeping people around as like your relationship with them could change. It could get on par with someone else's. So to sit here and be like, oh, they have no chemistry, they have nothing, or like he just wants her because she's attractive is like insanely disrespectful. I am accomplished, I'm well educated, I am driven, I am kind, I am a great supportive partner. There were so many qualities and Grant knew those. I think again, 2 out of like 10 of our conversations were included in the show. And I think that's really unfortunate. Because as it does confuse the audience, but I know the conversation we have. Grant knows the conversation we've had. Neither one of us were delusional that I was ever like his number one pick, but not to speak on his behalf, but I think we're in the same mindset of like, we're going to keep giving it a chance until there's no more chances to give. And for me, I'm like, I'm in this process and, you know, there's only one bachelor that we can choose from. And I wanted to give it my all. And I said to everyone, I'm like, I'm in this 100% until I'm not. And I didn't get that one-on-one. I didn't get that time to see if this was or was not my person. But the conversations we did have, and the one thing about me is I make the most of every single situation that I'm in, whether it is my job, my career, education, this experience.
I think that came across too on the show, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so the conversation we had is like, we had fun conversations. At prom is like, yeah, we danced, slow dance. And then I like had them trick him and like 30 seconds in played Get Low. And I'm dancing to Get, like, it was such a fun, like were funny. There was like banter. You know, I got deep. I told him about my upbringing. We had talked about the future. You know, I think our pivotal conversation was the last one in Spain where we were talking about the future. And again, not as like, this is my man, but like it could be. And I think we both were in that boat. And I think, as he said, if he's already had one-on-ones with people he knows are not going to be his wife, and we haven't had that opportunity, of course, like, give me the chance. And so I think that's what we both were doing. And you know, and for me, meeting the family, like, it's a big deal, but I don't know. I guess I'm a little delusional. Like, I'm like, I don't care. Like, you know, like I'll get married tomorrow if I meet the right person. So, as I said, we signed up to be on The Bachelor. This is not the craziest thing in the world that you could get engaged without having a one-on-one, you know? So I don't know. That, again, that's just the way
True.
I think. A lot of girls were so hesitant, even when we were in Madrid, being like, I don't think I could get engaged at the end of this. I'm like, oh no, I just need one day. If I have the right conversation, I need one day. So I think that different mindset and the different way of dating, you know, leads me to be love bombed sometimes. But like, I don't know. I like it. I'm fine with it.
No, and I also think people that haven't been on the show, it's easy for them to say like, and everyone's different. Some people couldn't do it, but some people would probably surprise themselves and be like, oh yeah, no, I actually, maybe I could do it. You know, it's such an unusual experience. But so looking back, I think a lot of people felt like surprised or confused as to how you got all the way to fantasy suites based on the little we saw of your relationship and those conversations. Were you surprised at all, or were you like, no, this totally makes sense to me, I have clarity on where we're at?
Oh no. I mean, I was insecure throughout the entire process as far as where I was on the radar.
Gotcha.
You know, he never gave me like some reassurance, like you're the one or anything like that. And it was kind of the opposite, but I felt why I kept having to like prove myself and my intentions is he actually kept like every conversation questioning my intentions, questioning if I was emotionally available, if I had depth, if I could be loyal when we got outside of here, which is absolutely crazy if you know me and like my friends. Like, I am the most loyal, sincere, authentic person you will find. I'm not going to say yes to a proposal. I'm not in this for the game. I'm not in this for the TV show. I'm in it for a husband. And, you know, I think that is why I kept pushing and trying so hard in a way that I would not be doing in the real world, because I'm like, if this is my man and this is our one opportunity, me not having a one-on-one at the end of the day, like, we'll get married. It doesn't matter. We have a lifetime of one-on-ones. But I think knowing my qualities and knowing that connection that we had, as I said, I think I knew until the end that like we were both giving it a chance. Yeah, and I think it just he only needs to pick one, right? So
Why do you think he was questioning your loyalty?
I think there's something about me where people like always assume I'm different than I am. I feel like maybe you guys, even when you probably watched the episode, you're like, oh gosh, like this girl's not making it far. Like, she's, you know, just very, I'm a very confident woman. I'm driven, and like I think that can again. And I came in. I'm already modeling. I live in New York City. You know, I think I'm the archetype of someone who could just be here for the wrong reasons.
Right. And what we've seen maybe in the past on the show.
Exactly. And so I think in his head, his like biggest fear was choosing someone who was here for the wrong reasons. I think we forget he was on Jen's season where we had the biggest like dupe of as far as I know in like Bachelor history. So I think him coming off the back of that, I was probably like, you know, fearing that like maybe people like me were doing the same. And I'm like, no, like I'm already living my life. I am successful in these industries. I genuinely just want a husband from this experience. Like, anything else, great, but like I'm not thinking about those other things. And then I think
at any point did you start to question if he was your person? Like if he's constantly questioning you and your character, were you at any point like, maybe, I don't know, or were you like, I'm going to keep progressing this forward until, the end?
Because we hear you say near the end, like, you've asked me so much, but like, I don't know if I know enough about you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I was ever like questioning, like in the sense of like, oh, I need to leave this experience. Like he's not my person, because as I said, until the very end, because we didn't get that time.
Yeah.
And so, and maybe this is also like the bad part of the trauma that I have of like feeling like I have to constantly like prove myself and like not stand up for myself in a situation like this. But we hadn't had that time where I could be definitively like, this is not my person. If I'm being told he's a good man and he's husband material and he's looking for a wife, like, then let me just stick it out until we get that time together. And I knew, worst case scenario, when you have an entire night with someone with no cameras, I'm going to get the answers that I need. And ultimately, after overnights, I stood on business before we went to overnights. And my conversation with him was not, let me know more about you. It was, I've been given the short end of the stick in this experience. You knew that I told you I was being bullied or like, put down and was not feeling comfortable. And you kept having me on these large group dates and competitive situations, never gave me that opportunity to just open up and be vulnerable on a one-on-one time. And were questioning me throughout this process, and I'm still here. And if I was here for the wrong reasons, I would, have left, not getting that one-on-one and the fancy date. And he apologized, and I said, like, that's not the behavior that I would take going outside of here. I'm willing to accept it because this is a one-time situation. And so that was kind of the turning point for me. I was like, I don't want my man to think that I'm not worthy of romance and kind gestures and to be his number one pick. And I think we got to overnights, which I don't know if I can say this part, but so we were talking for hours.
And this is during overnight.
No, this is before we went to overnights.
Okay.
And so this is just the epitome of my experience on The Bachelor. I'm extremely arachnophobic. We're having this relationship altering conversation. We've been in it for like, I think, in a couple hours. All of a sudden I see a cameraman looking down, and then in my line of sight was my number one fear was a tarantula crawling around outside. I've never seen one in my life. And it was not like, this is not funny. I had a full-blown panic attack. I'm crying, I'm shaking. I'm like, get me the heck out of here. I cannot stay here. And they were like, well, this is where your overnight was supposed to be. And I was like, oh, no. Like, I need to leave.
Was this inside? Like,
this was outside.
Okay.
Oh my. So it was like the most like insane thing. Like, Grant was comforting me, and like ultimately, like, we were allowed to go to a different location for our overnight. But I think that ultimately not only put me like in this like high stress, but it took away a couple hours of our like overnight. But by that point, we had our conversations, and I think that was the point I realized, like, oh, like, I don't think this is my man. Like, it was not what I was hoping to get out of the conversation. I don't feel like I was being seen as my full person. I felt like I was being seen in like one category versus another category. And I need someone who loves and wants to accept all of me. And so when I left the overnight, this was the first time I was like, I don't think I would say yes if he gave me a rose. And ultimately, like, I didn't have to come to that decision. And another thing,
did you think you were going to potentially have to come to that decision, or did you kind of know it wasn't you?
Well, so I thought it was 100% Latia
that was going to end up with him or get sent home that week.
That was going to end up with him.
Okay.
And so I'm at the end of the day, I'm like, it's a 50-50 chance that I get the second rose. But I was like, there was nothing life changing about our night. So I'm like, I genuinely, I had no clue. Cause I'm like, if I'm still here, I don't know you don't get to see other people's relationships other than Latia kept getting validated. And that was obvious.
Did you see that though? Cause you're saying like saying 100% is pretty, like you're an analytical person. You said you've worked on Wall Street. If you're throwing 100% out there,
100%,
what evidence do you have to back that?
Well, this is it. And what I think people don't realize is Juliana and I were in the same boat up until Scotland, right? I mean, obviously she knows her conversation I know the conversation I had. But as far as like validation, Latia got the first group date rose. Latia got a 3-on-1. Latia was hand selected for the 1-on-1 from the 3-on-1, and then she got the final 1-on-1. And just knowing her, she's an amazing woman. I'm like, oh, like it has to be her. Like, you know, like, so, and we only had so many, he had only had so many 1-on-1s this season, which is the other reason why I was not so salty about not having one. There were only, what, 7 of them?
Yeah, it was a super short season.
Yeah. And so, to my knowledge, and based on our conversation, I was thinking it's 100% Latia, but he obviously, you know, but maybe he you just don't know what people are thinking. And so I was just like, I don't know, it might be me, it might not be me, like to be second. And I was like, I don't know if I would say yes. But I didn't want to take away his power as the Bachelor, which people may or may not think is right. Like people are like, well, I would have just left. Well, if he's having me here, like I don't want to take away his power or make him regret having me here. And then like he could have furthered his relationship with like Dina, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
And
also so short. Like you have your overnight, and like typically in the real world, if you're having like doubts on if this is your person,
yeah,
you talk to them for another week or two, you go on another date, you like talk to your friends. Whereas like literally you're in a rose ceremony 2 days later, probably
oh no,
still
no,
like,
no, I'm sorry, no, my overnight was last.
oh, you had the last one. Okay.
Yeah,
So
so I was the
quick.
last overnight. Yes, and so it was less than 12 hours before the rose ceremony. So that's why I was like, I'm getting ready, I'm like thinking, and I'm like, I don't know where my head's at. And that's also like knowing I had the last one. I'm like, well, he's already went with the other two, and like, well, we're still going and trying. So I was like, I don't know. I was just by that point was just very confused about where I was in this process. And I think, as I said, I have never really watched the show. I've seen snippets here and there, and like maybe a season a year or two after it's aired. So I don't know. I was just kind of there, and I was like, I want to give it a chance, and I don't want to stop my blessing if this is meant to be my person. So that was the first time I think in this entire time I was like, if I don't get a rose, I'm not going to be like, I didn't get to see this through.
Right. You're like, maybe my journey is coming to an end, and if I don't get a rose, that's just a sign he's not my person.
Yeah.
You
But the tarantula was the first sign.
Yeah, the tarantula. You'll meet Hakeem in Paradise because we know he's going to, and you guys can bond over your arachnophobia.
They're definitely going to put something's going to happen with that.
No, I'm
Yeah,
signing
keep your eyes
before.
peeled.
You mentioned earlier in the conference. I want to talk a little bit about the Latia of it all from last night, but you mentioned you have stuff to say about the Carolina situation of everything. What is your opinion on her?
All of that from the season to what you watched at the Women Tell All to now, maybe if there's been more.
Yeah. So I think, because the thing I don't like is that I'm being looped in on like we did the same thing and therefore I should be defending her. That's not the case. What actually happened is the same woman who kept attacking me twice on 2 group dates attempted to attack Carolina off camera after the rose ceremony, and I straight up said, "We're not doing that." No one stood up for me, but I'm going to stand.
Who is this woman? You don't want to say?
Not going to say.
Okay.
And I said, "We're not doing that. It's been a long day. We've been drinking. We're going to go to bed and we'll talk about this when we're sober." So I did stand up for her. I said, what you did was wrong. She had the rose. She took a very long time during the cocktail party. Girls went home that did not get to speak to him or were speaking about her when they were getting sent home. So girls had the right to be upset the same way they had the right to be upset about me, but we also need to be kind when we're addressing our frustrations with one another. Mm-hmm. And so I did stick up for her. And then the other thing that was I think she rubbed every person the wrong way continuously, whether or not you were on her date. So it started with that, and then it went to, well, she was having on and off camera conversations. So we're like, what are you talking about, an off camera conversation? We're on a show. So that part, I think, rubbed some of us the wrong way.
Grant or with the girls?
No, with the girls. And then wouldn't tell us what the drama was about. So we're like, well, you just monopolized all of our time. And now you're trying to have certain conversations on camera and certain conversation off camera, that's kind of calculated. So we did not like that. She like wanted selfies, wanted to stop the bus on the way to our group date to take a photo of herself. Was But my final straw was we were trying to kindly talk to her. As you saw, Juliana took her away because we didn't want to attack her in the group. Let her know what was happening. We come back and we're just like kindly saying, these are the kind of the things we've been seeing. One by one, no voices raised, no cussing, no one talking over her, giving her a chance to speak. And her initial reaction was, y'all are attacking me. Why are you attacking me? Zoe, I stood up for you. Why are you attacking me? I was like, this is not an attack, girl. Like, this is accountability. That's not an attack. And it's not even accountability. It's just we're telling you questions and our concerns.
Yeah. So we do have Carolina coming on for an interview on Bachelor Happy Hour shortly. What would you hope to see from Carolina in that interview after watching the season back, as well as how she handled Women Tell All?
You know, I hope just like accountability. I think we've seen her blame Grant, we've seen her blame production, we've seen her complain about the format of the show. We all agreed to go on it. We all did and behaved in the ways that we didn't and behave. And I think that it's just like just to stop with the digs and just to say like, hey, I could have done this differently, or maybe I should have just left if I wasn't in this 100%. Yeah, and just move on.
Yeah.
All right, so let's cut to the finale. You're someone, you were there. You probably know better than everyone watching. Latia ends up being sent home. Now you're saying you 100% thought it was Latia. It seemed like Latia 100% thought it was her. What are your thoughts on everything? Latia essentially said Grant, I mean, led her on the entire way, all the way up until the end. And did Latia ever open up to you about how much Grant was talking her up and validating her and basically making it seem like she was the one?
And so I think that she is 100% valid. I don't, at this point in time, I can't quite tell you if it was intentionally malicious that he said these things and he was in the back of his head thinking, you know, he had a different number one, or he just got caught up in trying to be a kind bachelor. I will say the way that he's kind of acted since we've left filming was a bit different than the man that he was showing us while we were filming, you know, and I think specifically for me to be questioned about my intentions, it's a bit ironic. And for that, I don't love that. I don't love how he has spoken about the two of us and all the women since leaving. I think that he can just acknowledge the facts and the reality of what we were in. You're allowed to change your mind. You're allowed to have said maybe you shouldn't have said these things, or maybe you should have done less, and you can just say that you were like caught up. You know, I'm grateful that I didn't feel led on, but I think she's 100% valid to feel that way. I think that the same thing with Carolina, like it's better to just acknowledge the facts of what happened, own up to it, and move on. Like
instead of making excuses, which is
instead of like not even rewriting history, right? There's reality, there's TV, and there's reality TV. Just because things were not aired does not mean they did not happen, right? So I think that we need to remember that and just we're all people and this is all of our first experiences, you know? And yeah, so I really don't appreciate, and I don't think she appreciates what happened since we left. And I assume she probably feels gaslit, which I would too.
It sounds like the time between filming and everything airing was probably really stressful and tense for a lot of reasons. Once cameras dropped at the end of AFR and the season officially has wrapped, what was the energy like in the room amongst everyone?
I think we were all glad it was over. I think it's for some of us it's been a much more tumultuous journey. Like I didn't even, I was like relentlessly cyberbullied for like the first 2 or 3 weeks of this show airing, like completely unjustified. And then her having to deal with this huge public heartbreak and probably embarrassment. And also like you're tied to him until you're off the show. So it's kind of like this really long process of like rehashing old wounds over and over and over, and you kind of can't move on until it's all said and done. And at this point we're 2 days removed, so I think we can all finally get back into reality. But I think it was tough. I think it's tough for her, but she is a beautiful, confident woman who is gonna find her man, and I think him and Juliana are great for each other, and they will hopefully have a happy long relationship. And I think like it makes sense and we're happy for them. I think it was just like the process was just confusing to a lot of us.
Do you think they will? You think Juliana and Grant will make it?
I only know parts of them. As I said, I think Grant had a lot of pressures on his shoulders to be the bachelor. I think maybe he behaved and said things that he maybe was trying to be a certain persona than who he really is. But if she's supporting, his desire to do music and, be a little bit more on socials and doing and saying these things, then good for her, girl, and good for them. I hope they last. Like, I love. And yeah, as long as they're genuine with each other.
Okay.
I was gonna say, before we let you go, we have to quickly chat about, you had a hot seat at the end of the night, which was so exciting. We see that you're officially invited to go to Paradise, and we also get an announcement that some of the golden contestants, we see Leslie and Gary come out, are going to be joining as well. Give us all your thoughts on that.
I'm excited to be in Paradise. I thrive in an ocean setting. So
Do you have your eyes on anyone?
Okay, so not really, because as I said, I didn't watch this. Like, I don't watch the show. Like, I was just thrown into this space, so I kind of did a little bit of research, screenshotted some like random names. I'm like, this guy's kind of cute. But like, I don't know, no one like 100%, but there's some cute guys in Bachelor Nation, so we'll see. Hopefully not a TikToker though. I like a man with a job.
Knowing what you know now about your experience on The Bachelor, where is your headspace going into Paradise?
Yeah, a lot of people ask me like, aren't you like, this was not like great experience for you? But I do love the people running Paradise, and I now know what Bachelor Nation is like outside of here. And I also am grateful that it's like I don't have to just go in there looking to chase some man and like breed my insecurities. Like, I can go in there as a confident woman, and if these men, like, if my person's not there, I don't feel like I have to like prove myself to one person. And I'm excited for that, to have more power and autonomy. And I also think like there's more love and like couples that come out of it because there's like a better chance. So I just want my person. I want a husband, and so I'm really excited for that potential. And hopefully this will be my love story.
Yay, we hope so too.
Yeah, we're excited for you. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day and talking with us. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, thanks, Zoe.
Yes, no problem. Thank you guys.
And thank you to all our listeners. Thank you for tuning into Bachelor Happy Hour. Make sure you stay tuned, download, and subscribe to the podcast.
Thanks for listening. Bye.